Welcome to Daylight. Today is April 17, 2026. Lithuania is stepping up its military assistance to Ukraine with a substantial 223 million package earmarked for critical areas including air defense, drones, and long-range ammunition. Defense Minister Robertas Kaunas made this announcement during NATO defense ministers' meetings in Brussels. Notably, this investment marks a cumulative military support total surpassing USD 1 billion from Lithuania, underscoring the Baltic states' unwavering commitment to bolstering Ukraine's defense mechanisms. This latest package reveals a deepening cooperation aimed not only at military aid, but also at enhancing Ukraine's domestic military production. A portion of the funds, around 32 million euros, has been directed toward developing long-range strike drones within Ukraine. These initiatives, which include an additional 10 million euros for drone production, and 5 million euro for anti-tank mine procurement, reflect Lithuania's strategic focus on establishing a sustainable military infrastructure in Ukraine. Furthermore, Lithuania has allocated nearly 30 million euro to support a coalition aimed at demining operations, showcasing a comprehensive approach to Ukraine's long-term military capabilities. From a geopolitical standpoint, Lithuania's sustained military aid is indicative of a broader strategy among NATO allies to provide Ukraine with essential support in the face of increasing threats from Russia. The consistent financial and military commitments signal to Moscow that Western allies remain united in their support for Ukrainian sovereignty. Minister Kaunas' statements emphasize Lithuania's commitment to security across Europe, particularly in light of the increasing Russian aggression that has led to regional instability. As Ukraine faces a pressing demand for air defense systems, President Vladimir Zelenskyy has raised alarms regarding a potentially critical shortage in interceptors. During discussions in Berlin, Zelenskyy emphasized that the fierce global demand for advanced air defense capabilities, spurred by conflicts like the one in Iran, exceeds current production capacities in Europe. Consequently, Ukraine finds itself increasingly reliant on American-made Patriot missile systems and is concurrently working on developing its own anti-missile defenses to mitigate this dependency. The urgency of this situation is compounded by the scale of missile and drone attacks on Ukraine, necessitating immediate and effective air defenses. The specific figures revealed are stark. Ukraine is also pursuing additional support for the French-German SAMP-T systems, illustrating a multifaceted effort to fortify defense capabilities against escalating Russian assaults. The challenges presented by the global arms market highlight Ukraine's precarious position as it seeks to modernize its military while under constant threat from significant aerial bombardments. In the context of international relations, this air defense predicament underscores the need for coordinated and timely assistance from allies. With varying levels of support from partner nations, Zelenskyy's appeals emphasize a critical moment for NATO and Western countries to reaffirm their commitments. The combined pressures on resources and responses could have cascading effects on Ukraine's sustainability in this conflict, as it combats both military aggressions and the logistical challenges of support. In a notable military commitment, the United Kingdom has pledged to deliver over 120,000 drones to Ukraine by the end of 2026. This announcement, described as the UK's most substantial drone package to date, was made during the 34th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. The diverse array of drones will include long-range strike units, reconnaissance capabilities, and logistics support, illustrating a comprehensive strategy to enhance Ukraine's aerial surveillance and operational efficiency in warfare. This expansive drone initiative coincides with a broader military support package estimated at £3 billion annually. The inclusion of leading British drone manufacturers such as Kyiv and Windracers signifies a focused effort on leveraging domestic capabilities to support Ukraine as it endures ongoing Russian aggression. The frequency of these military provision announcements highlights the urgency and seriousness with which the UK government is treating the conflict, with Defense Secretary John Healey emphasizing unwavering support for Ukrainian resilience amid external distractions. From a geopolitical angle, this massive influx of drone technology underscores a significant shift in military dynamics across Europe. reflecting the alliance's recognition of unprecedented threats posed by Russia. These moves also serve as a direct message to Moscow, indicating that the West remains vigilant and prepared to counter aggression through substantial and sustained military cooperation with Ukraine, fundamentally altering the landscape of modern warfare. Ukraine has successfully generated an additional $500 million in revenue over expectations in the first quarter of 2026, as reported by Finance Minister Serhiy Marchenko. This surplus is particularly crucial as Ukraine manages its war efforts and seeks financial stability under extreme duress. Marchenko's assertions of strong revenue mobilization reinforce the government's efforts to reassure international partners of its fiscal health amidst ongoing conflict. Despite this boost, Ukraine continues to face immense challenges in securing enough domestic funding, as foreign assistance remains vital for maintaining its military and governmental operations. Marchenko acknowledged the temporary nature of foreign financial support, hinting at the necessity for Ukraine to innovate pathways for attracting private investment, especially as the prospects for generous international assistance may not persist indefinitely. This aligns with broader discussions during the prestigious U.S.-Ukraine Partnership Forum, aimed at fine-tuning Ukraine's economic framework and encouraging sustainability moving forward. Notably, these interactions signal a pivotal moment in how Ukraine engages with international financial institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, which has set stringent conditions for ongoing aid. These conditions mandate a more robust revenue collection process, involving new tax implementations, despite some legislative hurdles experienced by the Ukrainian parliament. As Ukraine scrambles to balance reform with wartime demands, the implications of its fiscal strategy could resonate throughout its recovery landscape post-conflict. In a chilling revelation, it has come to light that President Vladimir Putin authorized the detention of Russian citizens opposing the war in Ukraine without trial. According to a document disclosed by Department 1, this directive was quietly issued in March 2022, thereby legitimizing the pretrial detention of dissenters by security agencies, including the FSB and the Interior Ministry. This marks a significant escalation in the Kremlin's repressive tactics against those opposed to the war. The implications of such heavy-handed approaches by the Russian government not only infringe upon fundamental human rights, but exemplify the lengths to which the regime is willing to go to silence dissent. As reported cases of arbitrary detentions mount, these insights shed light on a broader systematic policy geared towards stifling any form of opposition to the ongoing military operations in Ukraine. Furthermore, the acknowledgement of this document highlights the challenges facing human rights activists trying to monitor and report on such violations. From a geopolitical standpoint, this authoritarian strategy signals a government keen on maintaining absolute control amidst mounting discontent. Moreover, these repressive measures could have repercussions in terms of heightened global scrutiny over Russia's human rights record, complicating diplomatic relations and exacerbating the already strained perceptions of the Kremlin on the international stage. Recently, Russian officials, including former President Dmitry Medvedev, publicly identified European facilities linked to drone production for Ukraine as legitimate targets. This announcement coincides with an alarming trend of heightened military collaboration between Ukraine and its Western allies that may provoke a more aggressive response from Moscow. The reference list includes manufacturing hubs across several European countries, exacerbating tensions amidst a climate already fraught with conflict. The explicit identification of potential targets not only poses risks for these facilities, but signifies ongoing fears within Russia about the evolving military capabilities of Ukraine and its allies. As Russia threatens to escalate its actions, the response from Europe will likely be scrutinized closely. The implications stretch beyond military affairs, reflecting wider geopolitical vulnerabilities and the necessity for coordinated responses to safeguard mutual interests in defense and security against an increasingly belligerent Russia. In terms of international responses, the threats outlined by Medvedev reveal a provocative posture that could lead to direct conflict scenarios involving military operations between NATO nations and Russia. as European states deliberate on how to bolster their defenses. The landscape of cooperation and tension is becoming increasingly complex, with ramifications that could shape the future of the conflict and broader regional stability. With Russian losses mounting significantly since February 2022, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports that Russia has now lost a staggering 1,350,070 troops since the initiation of its full-scale invasion. This figure includes a noted 1,100 casualties reported over the most recent day, evidencing the intense and ongoing attrition faced by Russian forces in Ukraine. In addition to personnel losses, Russia has faced severe deterioration in its military asset inventory, with nearly 12,000 tanks, over 24,000 armored vehicles, and tens of thousands of drones eliminated from their ranks. Such casualty figures underline the heavy toll that the conflict has wrought on Russia's military capabilities, raising questions about their sustainability and operational readiness in the face of continued Ukrainian resistance. Analyzing this within a geopolitical context, the disproportionate loss ratios suggest that Ukraine's resilience, fueled by international support, is yielding substantial dividends on the battlefield. However, there remain questions about Ukraine's own losses, which corroborating reports indicate could be substantial but are more closely guarded, hinting at the complex and evolving nature of warfare in this prolonged conflict. In what has been described as one of the largest drone strikes of the year, Russia launched a substantial barrage on Ukrainian territory, resulting in at least 18 casualties and injuring over 100 individuals. This massive wave of attacks primarily targeted civilian centers across key cities including Kyiv, Odessa, Dnipro, and Zaporizhzhia, demonstrating the ongoing shift towards devastating aerial assaults by Russian forces. Reports indicate that approximately 659 drones and 44 missiles were deployed, highlighting the scale of the assault and the challenging environment it creates for Ukrainian air defenses. Despite successful interceptions of many drones, the sheer number of incoming threats posed immense challenges for the defending forces, leading to significant destruction and civilian suffering. The geopolitical implications of such aggressive attacks from Russia cannot be understated, as civilian casualties continue to rise and public sentiment in Ukraine turns increasingly against the aggressor state. President Zelenskyy condemned these attacks as war crimes and reiterated the necessity for unwavering international support. This context reinforces the urgency for allied nations to fortify their military assistance to Ukraine amid worsening humanitarian crises. Reports have emerged detailing how Russia has exploited migrant populations by coercing them into military service in Ukraine. These labor migrants, primarily from Central Asia, endure severe neglect and forced recruitment tactics under duress from authorities. With life expectancy for these conscripts being alarmingly low on the front lines, evidence suggests a systemic abuse of vulnerable communities exploited for military gain. The experiences of migrants like Khushruzjon Salohidinov highlight the unconscionable pressures faced within the Russian penal system and the ensuing consequences when individuals oppose military service. Not only do these coercive practices raise serious moral and ethical questions, but they also establish a trend of using marginalized populations to bolster military ranks amid dwindling domestic support for the war. These developments frame a broader conversation about the ramifications of forced recruitment within global populations and illustrate how vulnerable legislative frameworks may allow regimes to exploit individuals. As human rights advocates seek to reveal and combat these abuses, the international community faces a crucial moment in addressing such violations against migrant workers amid ongoing conflict. Continuing the cycle of violence, recent Russian strikes have resulted in at least 22 civilian deaths and injured over 130 others in just the last day. The intensity and frequency of these attacks come as Ukrainian officials confirm that Russian forces deployed substantial missile and drone capabilities against urban centers, causing widespread panic among civilians and raising cries of war crimes from Ukrainian leadership. The staggering statistics reflect ongoing assaults on civilian infrastructure and heightened concerns regarding the protection of non-combatants within international law. Areas such as Kyiv, Odessa, and Dnipro witnessed significant strikes, with multiple fatalities and repairs needed to residential buildings. The State Emergency Service has noted the urgent need for additional humanitarian aid and support for affected regions to recover and rebuild amidst persistent hostilities. In response to the escalating violence, Ukraine's government emphasizes the necessity for continued international support, framing the conflict in moral terms as one of survival against aggression. The stakes are not merely national, but resonate across Europe as nations grapple with the challenges posed by a hostile neighbor, reinforcing the significance of collective action in the face of adversity. In light of critical air defense shortages, President Zelenskyy has tasked Ukraine's Air Force with reaching out to allies regarding promised missile support for the Patriot defense system. The recent mass attacks underscore the urgency of this initiative amid dwindling interceptor stocks, as Russian forces escalate their operations in Ukrainian territory. Zelenskyy's call emphasizes the need for swift action from partners to fill logistical gaps, hindering Ukraine's defensive capabilities. The president's warnings frame a dire situation that necessitates comprehensive support from international allies to fortify Ukrainian airspace against increasing threats. Acknowledging the strategic importance of air defense systems, Zelenskyy's directives underscore how vital, timely, robust assistance is in the ongoing conflict. Additionally, these discussions illustrate the intricate balance of commitments and logistics in wartime support strategies as Ukraine endeavors to maintain operational integrity in the face of sustained aggression. The forthcoming weeks may prove vital in determining the trajectory of support and the feasibility of Ukraine's air defense capabilities moving forward. Ukraine's expectations for Israel to take action regarding grain shipments seized by Russia remain unmet as imports continue to arrive from the shadow fleet. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry revealed plans to collaborate with Israel to halt such shipments, but faces frustration with delayed responses from Israeli authorities. With approximately 44,000 tons of grain believed to be illegally obtained, Kyiv pushes for international accountability regarding the ongoing looting of Ukrainian resources. The complexities of Ukraine-Israel relations during the war reveal a delicate balancing act as Israel navigates geopolitical landscapes while hoping to preserve diplomatic ties with Moscow. Kyiv's appeals for assistance highlight the need for solidarity among nations in preventing further violations stemming from Russia's actions in occupied territories. These developments reinforce the far-reaching implications of international complicity in the war, framing a collective accountability narrative that challenges the global community's responsibilities in addressing wartime transgressions. As Ukraine continues to advocate for the protection of its resources, this situation could press Israel to take a firmer stance against Russian activities. In a poignant display of solidarity, Swedish King Carl XVI Gustaf visited Ukraine, marking the first royal visit since the onset of the invasion. His meetings with President Zelenskyy and moments of remembrance at military graves symbolize a strengthening of bilateral ties and underscore Sweden's ongoing commitment to supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. The king's trip follows significant military investments by Sweden, revealing a concerted strategy within Northern Europe to bolster Ukraine's defenses. Symbolically, such visits can send powerful messages to both domestic populations and international audiences about the commitment of sovereign nations in times of crisis. They also serve to reaffirm existing partnerships and align regional strategies against common threats posed by Russia, promoting collective defense considerations between European nations. This evolving relationship highlights the nuanced diplomacy at play as nations reckon with geopolitical realities and strive to support allies under siege. The Swedish royal visit not only serves as a show of support, but also positions Sweden within a broader context of solidarity, emphasizing a unified stance against authoritarian aggression. Amid ongoing tensions, reports have emerged indicating that Russia is preparing to conduct 7 large-scale strikes against Ukraine each month, further escalating the threat level. This directive underscores a trend of increased militarization and underscores the challenges faced by Ukrainian officials as they strategize around Russian expectations and military capabilities. As political and military leaders engage in discussions about countering these impending threats, attention will inevitably turn towards enhancing air defense measures and ensuring that Ukraine is adequately equipped to handle such escalations. The implications of these planned strikes could fundamentally alter the dynamics of the conflict going forward, with increasing urgency for strategic, coordinated responses from NATO allies. In this context, President Zelensky's administration will likely continue to focus on securing broader international partnerships in defense to prepare for the onset of these anticipated strikes. The calls from the Ukrainian leadership reflect a pressing concern about the future of not only Ukraine, but also regional stability, emphasizing the necessity for alertness amid ongoing military planning. In a humanitarian victory, Ukraine has successfully returned nearly 20 children from territories occupied by Russia over the previous week. These children endured intimidation and pressure to undermine their Ukrainian identity while living under Russian occupation, marking a critical focal point in the broader context of child abductions associated with the conflict. The ongoing recovery of these abducted minors reinforces Ukraine's commitment to protecting its citizens and safeguarding their rights, irrespective of the ongoing war. With estimates suggesting that a staggering 20,000 children have been forcibly transferred to Russian territories, the stakes for child welfare continue to rise amid the brutal realities of conflict. The situation underscores the urgent need for international action to address the plight of displaced children and ensure their safety and well-being. As Ukrainian authorities navigate the challenges of reconciliation and reintegration, the focus remains on accountability for those responsible for such abductions, which underscores broader themes of human rights amidst warfare. As we reflect on today's events, the stakes in the Ukrainian conflict grow ever higher. Each military commitment from allies, each tragedy drawn from Russian aggression, and each international donative endeavor paints a vivid picture of resilience amidst adversity. Yet, within the geopolitical chess game at play here, it is essential to remember that the outcomes of these countless decisions will shape the future landscape not only for Ukraine, but for the global order at large. The ramifications of increased militarization and tensions with Russia echo far beyond the borders of Ukraine. Will the world unite in unprecedented support, or will regional dynamics falter in the face of persistent threats? The watchful eyes of history are upon us, and the resolutions we forge today will ripple for decades in the lives of countless civilians caught in this conflict. Thank you for joining us on this critical day as we continue to monitor these unfolding events.